All right, welcome into KC Sports Tonight. It's Thursday, August 21st. I'm Gabe Swartz, joined by Neal Jones. Neal, we've got a jam-packed show today. The Royals have already played this afternoon. They've closed up a 10-game homestand in which they went 8-2. We will get to the latest Chiefs news, including some security concerns as far as what happened at the Arrowhead facility in May of 2024, their preseason finale, a little bit more into the heat fallout of the KC Current from this past weekend, and a little look ahead to the college football weekend. But, Neal, as I mentioned, we'll start with the Royals.
To beer or not to beer. You wrote that. That's the best thing you have ever written on one of those things. And
sometimes smart things just come to me.
Yeah, and I tell you, I love the fact that you've got a clothing deal with like Fruit of the Loom T-shirts.
Yep.
So that's good. I have to wear a tie. You told me to wear a tie. I wear a tie and a sport coat or a jacket, which unfortunately does not match my khaki pants, so it looks good on television, but the reality is not very good. But we've had so many dog days where you're like, what are we going to talk about?
So much going on.
What are we going to
today.
talk about? The Sporting's not playing well. The Royals hadn't been playing well. Nothing's going on. The Chiefs are on their summer break. You know, what are we going to talk? Well, suddenly now there's an intersection of all things Kansas City, and almost all of them are interesting stories. Let's start with the Royals, only because they won today. Are you a believer? You're a realist, so you weren't really buying them. What do you think about them now? They go 8-2 on this 10-game homestand.
Yeah, I think that you had to be hesitant with buying into them being a legitimate playoff or believing that their playoff odds were going to reach a point in which it becomes a believable thought more than it was 6% as of Monday even. And that was despite a really good series against the Nationals last week, winning 2 out of 3, sweeping the White Sox over the weekend.
White Sox, another good team. Those are good teams.
I'm just saying they were playing 10 games at home, 10 games against a team that I think every night that you showed up to the ballpark, every night that fans showed up to the ballpark, they're thinking this is a game that the Royals should win. I think the Royals were favored in every single game based on the odds. And to go 8-2, and you get the help of the Mariners, who were swept by the Phillies this week.
They played great. The Mariners have played really good.
The Mariners have played really good baseball this year.
A good team.
And they got swept by the Phillies. The Red Sox had a poor week against the Orioles, and now they're playing the Yankees this weekend. So they will jostle, and those are two teams that either one of them is separating from the other.
It's like watching your enemies fight.
Yeah.
You don't really care who wins. You just hope they bloody each other and bludgeon each other so that they come out weaker for this, because the Royals are trying to deal with both the Yankees and the Red Sox in this wild card race.
But I think that the critical part of having some belief, whether that's in the clubhouse or among the fan base, and talking about getting some support out to the Royals as people maybe shift their focus across the parking lot with the NFL season starting in 2 weeks, or even the college football season starting a week from tomorrow or a week from today at Arrowhead, with Nebraska being in town. And I know there's lots of Cornhusker fans.
That's exciting. I'm excited for them.
There's to be 2 games out of a playoff spot against the Mariners, and a team in the Mariners who you went 2-2 when you went to Seattle back in June, and you are going to get a series against the Mariners at Kauffman Stadium in September. I think that's shaping up to be a very critical series for the Royals if they can continue this. And I guess my question for you, Neal, is you seem a little skeptical based on your comments about the Nationals and the White Sox and the Rangers
I'm
not
just
being great.
Being a sarcastic jerk.
Okay.
So
they're going to Detroit this weekend. It's the division leader.
You play 162 games. They add up the number of wins, right? This is not the BCS. Well, the Royals' strength of schedule, I'm not very impressed, and they're not winning by very big, so I'm going to mark them down. No, it's what you win, and within the division, it's how you do against those teams. And last year, they won a game against the Mariners that none of us really knew was that big a deal, but it ended up being the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
That's why they got in the playoffs. That's why they had the opportunity to go to Baltimore and shock the Orioles. That's why they had an opportunity to go into New York and put a little bit of a scare into the eventual American League champion Yankees. You never know which of these games, and you said it best. I mean, that could end up being a critical game series against the Mariners. So suddenly we like to focus on, well, let's see who they're playing in the Central Division, or let's see how they're doing against the Yankees and teams like. No, You never know where these critical games are going to come from. And I'm telling you, taking care of business against the Rangers for 2 of the 3 series that they've had against them has been big for them this year.
Yeah, they went 6-1 against the Rangers this season. Swept them in Texas back in June. Take 3 out of 4. And I think that the thing is, you feel like both the game that they lost to the Nationals, they lose by 1.
Yeah.
The game that they lost last night, taking a 3-2 lead into the late innings.
And then I went over last night and I said, hey, did the Royals win? And you went, no, they were tied at 3 and gave up the ghost in the 9th. And I thought that was a pretty good, if I were anchoring, I would have stolen everything you said and said it just like you said it last night. Because and even today in the post game, manager Matt Quatrero could not help. You know, they're 8-2 at home. They had so many games that could have gone either way, but they found a way to do it. By the way, they're hitting the long ball. And today they got out hit. But they beat the Rangers like everybody was beating them. The Rangers were right there. They had more hits, and they didn't have an error. The Royals had an error, but they're hitting the ball out of the park. They had a couple of home runs, and that was the difference.
Yeah, they won 2 games that Salvador Perez didn't play in. They've hit a home run in 11 straight games. Vinny Pasquantino has hit a home run in 4 straight games. And
all things that you'll be able to see at 6 o'clock on KCTV 5 Sports.
Yeah, and I think Vinny's making a case for the AL August Player of the Month, given his power numbers. So, Neal, this weekend, we have the game on KCTV on Sunday.
Because they're going to Detroit, and they're going to play 3 games against the first-place Tigers.
Yep.
And not going to be easy. They're not going to catch the Tigers. So you really don't – I mean, if this were a close series, oh, good, they get their at-bats against the Tigers. You just assume skip that. Tigers have not been as good. They had that great first half of the season. They haven't been so great since the All-Star break. But you tell me that they've stabilized a little bit. And as you said, Sunday, 12:40 p.m. on KCTV Channel 5. There won't be any college football that I know of. There won't be any pro football that we need to worry about. The Chiefs play on tomorrow night. So Sunday at 12:40, if it's a hot day, either, get out by the pool with your television on, stay inside where it's cool, watch this game. Because when they play on Channel 5, they got a good record. The Royals have been good.
They have a winning record on our air this week, or this season. So those pitching probables for the weekend: Friday night, Ryan Bergert against Casey Mize. Saturday, Michael Wacha against Chris Paddock. Sunday, Seth Lugo against Jack Flaherty, which means the Royals do not face Cy Young favorite Tariq Skubal this
Second
weekend.
time now.
So that's very, very helpful for them.
They've skipped. I mean, maybe, I don't know why, but they didn't have to pitch. He was going to pitch against him, I think, earlier this year, and he missed his start or something, so that's the way it goes. Look, this is an exciting time because these games kind of matter. You find yourself, we have YouTube TV. We don't get the games except when they're on Channel 5 at home, and my wife watches these Sunday games. She enjoys it. I hope that next year we get an expanded package. I don't want to speak for the Royals, and I don't want to speak for Channel 5, but I think both sides would love to see more free over-the-air games in Kansas City, so maybe that happens next year.
I know that they're rating well when they do that.
Really good ratings, no question about it. I mean, because this market is so fractured, I don't know why YouTube TV doesn't have the games. I mean, I wish they did, because you're flipping around in the evening, you get home having a beverage or something with your wife or girlfriend or your kids or whatever. Oh, let's watch a little bit of baseball. And I feel like I don't hear Ryan Lefevre's voice as much as I'd like to hear. I love his call of baseball games on television. I love the job that Joel Goldberg does pre and post game, along with the pitcher.
Yes, Jeff
Montgomery, Monty. I love them. And so, but if I'm not at work, I don't get to watch that. So that'll be fun, at least on Sunday for them. All right, let's skip a little bit. Let's switch. You see, Chiefs security. This is not something that I think you and I would be talking about. This story came out of nowhere yesterday. The Kansas City Star breaks the story, gets it out there. I go home last night about 11 o'clock at night from work, and it's all over the world. It's worldwide. The Chiefs and the NFL are so big, and Andy Reid is so well known even overseas because they've been so successful for so long that story really resonates. How shocked are you to find out that someone fired a weapon, a bullet, into Andy Reid's office, and it smacked into the wall, they say about 15 feet away from his desk?
Yeah, I think it's truly shocking news when we first heard the report from the Kansas City Star last night, and then reaching out to the KCPD about this to find out what they know and what they were willing to share with us. In the conversations in the newsroom that I had with Marlia, the thought that I went to is that this was happening, 3 months removed from the incident at the Chiefs rally.
Yeah.
And so if this had ended up in a different situation, or if the bullet ends up going in a different spot in that office, and we have a situation with Andy Reid, I think that it would have completely shifted the way that the sports world is talking about, and even that the nation is talking about, in terms of what the big focus is on the city of Kansas City and just the safety of things and where things are going, that it could even impact the Chiefs to that point. So it's an incredible story just of what has gone on. I think that important questions were asked today at the Chiefs luncheon of Mark Donovan about what led the organization to not say anything about this for 15 months and for it to not come out for over a year. And I'll read the quote that we have on our website that Marlia reported. She was out there at the press conference today that Mark Donovan held before the Chiefs luncheon, which is the kickoff event for the season. And Mark Donovan said, we went back and said, okay, here's where we are. Here's the situation. Here's what we've determined happened. What's the next step, both from a PR standpoint, from a communication standpoint? We made our decisions and moved on. And then he said the focus for the organization is about keeping our staff, our fans, and everybody involved with our organization safe. I find this, Neal, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to watch the Kingdom documentary that's come out on ESPN Plus, but one of the important things, or at least one of the interesting behind-the-scenes details that you get, certain people, I'm sure you're well aware of this because you're around the building and you're around the Chiefs and you understand Andy Reid's kind of work ethic, is how early and how late he arrives and leaves at the facility, and that this happened after midnight. I think after watching that episode last week and then finding this out last night and into today, it's just a crazy thing to think about, of just what's going on there and the security that's – Mark Donovan admitted that NFL teams have different levels of security than most people realize, and they have all of these resources. So,
well, it's interesting because when I first came to Kansas City in 1993, Joe Montana had just come to town. And at that time, Joe Montana was one of the 4 or 5 most famous athletes in the United States, even though he had not started for about 2 years because of injury with the 49ers. He was playing behind Steve Young. He was still Joe Montana. And he came here, and there was a former Secret Service agent who lived in Kansas City who did Joe Montana's security. He was with him, and he told me one time, I said, how do you approach this? He goes, I approach this just like we approach it with the president or anybody else. You're there, you try to predict where a person might be vulnerable, and you try to prevent it. You can't stop everything. If someone is willing to give up their life, they'll kill the president. If they're willing to give up their life, they could go in and attack anybody. And you could have all the security you want. It's almost impossible to keep it from happening. But what we have seen, so you do know this stuff. I was like, wow. But then, do you remember when Lionel Messi came in for his first match a couple summers ago at Arrowhead Stadium? The security there was to a level I had never seen before. It was unbelievable. The FIFA people were like, you can't go down that thing, and I've got all my equipment. And I'm like, I have to do a live shot. I've got to be able to get down there. How do I get down there? Well, you got to go around and up these stairs. I go, I've got a cart. I can't go up the stairs. I'm credentialed.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? And a head of security who works all the Chiefs games, uniform security down there, said, here, I know him. Neal, I'm going to take him around. So he took me around, and we were able to get on the field down the tunnel, and he vouched for me because I've been around for a long time and because he knows who I am, and I've got TV equipment. And the equipment had all been scanned, so they knew it wasn't a bomb or a gun or something like that. So that so they had scanned everything in and searched it like they do. So I'm like, wow. And so I talked to the security guy later on during this preseason for football. I go, what was that about? That was crazy. He goes, Neal, he is more famous. Lionel Messi is more famous worldwide than anybody in the NFL. Anybody. And there are threats to kidnap him. There are they don't want to kill people like that. You can't make money off of them. So what you do is you try to kidnap them, and then that's their dream. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, no, that's what we're all worried about, is that something like that will happen. Gabe, in my opinion, all we've seen is we've seen all this stuff happen. Something like that will eventually happen. We see it happen down. I'll never forget Matt Beasler was going down to play in Brazil before the World Cup, or he had been down there before, I believe, the World Cup, and he was talking about going to play for Team USA in the World Cup. And he said, look, when we go down there, there's all this list of things we can't do and our families can't do. You just can't, because down there, kidnapping is an industry. And there are people who make their money kidnapping people and then ransoming. They don't want to kill anybody. They just want to hold them and say, look, we've got we got this American soccer player who plays for Team USA. If you don't pay the money, we cut off his legs or something. And then everybody's insured, so they pay the money. And then he was talking about that openly and talking about the concern of going down there for the World Cup. I suspect that the NFL is way ahead of all of us. They're playing these games in Europe. They were playing them in Mexico. I don't know if they played anything in Mexico recently, but they're playing them now in South America, and you've got to protect the players, so I'm sure the NFL is doing a good job of it. But did you know that there had been a shooting at a Royals game? Someone drove by on I-70 and fired a weapon into Kauffman Stadium, and they hit a woman who was sitting in like the first or second row of the upper deck. A night game out there. This was in the 90s. They didn't publicize it. I'm sure the Chiefs didn't announce that Andy Reid's office, somebody had fired into it, and who knows if they knew where Andy Reid's office was or if somebody was just firing indiscriminately and they happened to hit his office. But the reason they don't tell people that, and it's out now, so is copycats.
Yeah.
Copycats, that's the big concern. I talked to law enforcement before last year, and they were like, look, if the Chiefs win, I don't think we can have a parade. I think it's going to have to be inside Kauffman Stadium, or I beg your pardon, Arrowhead Stadium, where we can search every bag that comes in. Because do we really believe that someone else won't do this? I mean, we've seen it. School shootings weren't a thing until one person did it, and then copycats came along.
Yeah.
Who knows why they do it? I'm in sports. I'm not smart enough to know all that. But I'm sorry the story got out, but I understand. Great piece of reporting by Sam McDowell in the Kansas City Star. And it certainly is newsworthy because, like I said, It was all over the world as I looked around last night. But let's just hope it does not happen again. Can we talk football for just real quick?
And the last thing on that is that we've not heard publicly from Andy Reid about this. The first chance to potentially hear about it will be after tomorrow night's game, which, as we'll speak about now, is at 7:20 tomorrow night.
And I hope that he probably go, look, guys, I've been told not to talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. I'm glad nobody was hurt.
Yep.
Okay, football-wise, Chiefs play. They host
the
Chicago Bears tomorrow night, 7:20 p.m. Let me ask you, because I think they're going to look good. Luther Burden III from Missouri, the wide receiver, and Caleb Williams, the quarterback, who everybody goes, well, he was a disaster last year. He was a rookie starting with a bad football team. At times he looked really good.
A really bad coach.
And at times he looked really, really good, and at times he looked lost, which is what you expect when you join a bad organization that has not won for a long time, that had the number one overall pick. What happened to him is the worst case scenario. What happened to Patrick Mahomes is the best case. You went in the first round, you went high enough to make some money, but you went to a winning team that had a history of winning with a head coach who knows how to coach quarterbacks and offense. And look what happened. He played behind Alex Smith for a year, and then he absolutely exploded onto the scene year two, very famously with 50 touchdown passes. But I think that'll be fun to watch, to see, because I think that The Bears starters will probably play a little bit to open the game. Then they'll probably rest them. But they've had something to prove. They want to get some snaps for their quarterback. I don't know how Luther Burden's done, but it'll be interesting to see.
He looked
that.
really good against the Bills in week 2 of their preseason.
They killed the Bills last week.
It was 43-0 or something along those lines. 43-6, I think, was the final score. I think that in terms of week 3 of the preseason, this is about as intriguing as you're going to get. Most teams don't play their starters. Most teams don't play their starters in week 3. Most of them just go week 1, week 2, if they're going to do it. That's what the Chiefs have done for a long time. This year, they play the first 2 games on the road. They play a second game on turf in the rain, up in Seattle. Weird travel, short week, all those kinds of things.
And Reed said something interesting yesterday. He said, look, they said, why'd you choose to do that way? And he mentioned what you just talked about. But he also said, because of it was a long lag. And I just thought if we play up there, then we have a long lag. And I want our guys to be ready when they go into the regular season. So I want to get our starters some snaps. Don't you think, though, if they look really good the first 2 series, those guys are gone?
Yeah, absolutely. But
have you seen enough from Kingsley Suamataia at left guard? I think we all feel like Josh Simmons looks pretty good at left tackle. If Kingsley Suamataia, should he get extra snaps at guard, because he has not been a perfect offensive guard, although he's done some nice things, particularly in the run game.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing is I know that PFF likes to do their player grades of how evaluating players and how they're doing. Kingsley's graded really well in the run blocking. He's not graded very well at all when they're pass blocking. And we know how critical pass blocking is for the Chiefs because they're going to throw the ball a lot more than they're going to run the ball. I think he just needs reps. It's not like he's not talented. It's not like there's not the physical skills there. It really just looks like somebody who's not crazy confident. And I think that's the worrying part, is that the confidence and his confidence got crushed at left tackle last season, getting benched in week 2 and not playing very much from there on out. He was briefly in the game against the Broncos in like week 9 and did not look good. So my worry would be crushing the guy's confidence, given what we've seen about Sky Moore, who got traded yesterday, and all that. But
he's a guy that can stand to play quite a bit tomorrow. We're going to be live all night tomorrow night leading up to the game. It'll be a lot of fun and very exciting. All right, the Heat fall out. Saturday, a huge afternoon for soccer. The national television, CBS, was going to carry the NWSL's game with the KC Current as they host the second-place team, one of the best teams in the league, the Orlando Pride. They wanted their 2 best teams playing on the biggest venue, which was CBS, and it gets wiped out. That's why the game was scheduled for 3 o'clock Central Time in mid-August. Nobody wanted that. Orlando didn't want it. Kansas City didn't want it. But the network wanted it, and the league wants their best teams on their big stage, and so they had them playing that. And, of course, it ended up being suspended. They had to hold it and hold it. They kicked 3.5 hours late. National television window had ended, so the game was on CBSSports.com, I think is what it was. And so, if you wanted to see it, you could see it from around the country, but it wasn't on free television. But today, we find out from the Athletic. The Athletic breaks the story that not only, what we were hearing from our Katie Marr, who was out there covering it, was the players want to go. Some of the players for the KC Current, they want to play. The fans are going, come on, play. They're clapping. Let's play. Let's get this thing going. But there are league rules, player association rules for safety, and it's based on humidity and dew point and temperature, and it was too hot. It was just too much. People were making they're playing baseball. Baseball is a little bit different than soccer, where you're running constantly.
Yep.
Even if you have a lot of water breaks, you could have problems. I think that there's some things they could do with allowing different substitution, allowing unlimited substitution or double the substitution so people can come in and out a little bit. You don't do that in soccer, but there's some things they could do if they wanted to get that match in. But the bottom line is the teams didn't want to play, and the league apparently, according to The Athletic, threatened them with huge fines to the teams if they didn't play. At the end of the day, it was out of the league's hand and it was out of the team's hand because their agreement with the Players Association for safety said it was too hot.
Yeah,
so it's too bad. But I don't. There's not. I understand the league. You're trying to grow it, right? And so you're trying to get on national television. CBS, I understand them. They don't want to play a soccer match, men or women's soccer match in prime time. They're not going to do that. And so both sides, I can see their point, but that's the way it ends up. Are you outraged by this real quickly?
I think that the most revealing part of the report today was the portion of it in which the executive director of the NWSL Players Association said that the NWSLPA pointed out to they get a preview of the schedule when it's proposed in January before it's officially released to the public, and they flagged this game as, hey, this is a 3 p.m. game in August in Kansas City. It's probably going to have heat issues, and so it turns out to be this huge deal because it's Orlando versus Kansas City. It's the two best teams in the league, and the league is desperately wanting to have it in that 3 o'clock time slot for the CBS audience. But
there's a way around this. The way that they always have done it with Major League Baseball, game of the week at night, the Monday night game or the game of the week is they make sure there are two games. One of them, and they're not in the same part of the country. They could have had an indoor team or a team in the north playing and hope that there's not lightning delay there, so that you have a second game. Hey, we're gonna take you up to Minnesota for their match or whatever. I mean, wherever the teams are up north in the NWSL, but there are teams on the West Coast up north, Portland, Thorne, people like that. That's a safe game to have as your backup, so that you have a situation like this. But I am not outraged by this. That's just the way it is. Everybody has they're in it for a business, and they're trying to make it happen. All right, really quickly, to beer or not to beer. I bring this up because I do not drink alcohol while I'm watching athletic events. I've never thought of playing golf, drinking, or doing anything sports related other than maybe going to a baseball game when you have Budweiser up in the stands, one beer. I just don't mix alcohol in sports because maybe it's because of my business. Maybe it's because I care about sports. So what are you going to do Saturday? What games are you going to watch? Your in-laws have the most unbelievable setup in their backyard. I've actually shot stories there during the pandemic.
That's true.
Because they set
and
up.
I was there, and you forgot that I was there.
I didn't forget. I just completely ignored you because the rest of their family's so interesting, and you were over there in the back, like keeping stats. Look at this. But so what are you going to do? And do you drink and party when you're watching games?
I'm much like you in that I would prefer to be able to remember the game and be able to analyze what's going on and have a thought on it. So I'm generally a little bit more subdued during games. I would say that this Saturday, my plan, I will be playing in a charity golf tournament with my boss, Greg Daly, over here on the digital desk this weekend. So I will be on the golf course during.
What's the etiquette? Is it bad? Is it bad to beat your boss? Is it better to let them win?
Well, we're on the same team, so I think that we're going to be attempting to play good golf. I'm going to be on the golf course while the K-State Iowa State game gets started.
And is this a Kansas City Country Club?
It is not. It's a public course.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm heading out to Lawrence, and I will be.
Oh, you're going to go to that game? Are you working or playing?
I am watching from the stands.
Now, your wife is a recent Kansas graduate, so she's going to be over there with all of her sorority sisters and everything, and that could be a big deal?
The family's going out there. So I'm going to be testing out the new seats. I think you're going to be there covering it.
Yeah, I'm going to be interviewing fans. I will not interview you, but I bet I interview your father-in-law. He and his wife are two of the best interviews, and you have a sister-in-law who's a great interview as well.
Yep, there we go. So
and your brother-in-law is a great interview. They're all great interviews. Your wife's a great interview. The only bad interview is you, and you're the one on TV.
Yeah.
But, okay, which game jumps out at you the most? Is it the Nebraska game at Arrowhead Stadium? Because there's going to be a lot of red.
I can't wait to see that one, yeah.
That's going to be exciting. I think I'm told Cincinnati's going to be better, but you got to think that Nebraska's the favorite going into that game.
I think K-State, Iowa State has to be the one of the weekend. One of the – especially week 0 to have a ranked matchup on a week where it feels like extra football.
Two teams from the same league killing each other.
Yeah.
And what do you think about K-State giving up a home game? I think you'd rather play this in Manhattan the last week of the year like it would have been rather than this.
Yeah.
But you know what? They haven't had a lot of success against Iowa State. That's the one team that's given Coach Chris Kleiman and his staff some problems. So maybe shaking it up is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's what you'd think. But in the new version of college football with NIL and brands and all these kinds of things. They want to be on a big stage and get a national game, and so
pumped.
they're forfeiting it with that, and hopefully this is a season they can take advantage of Avery Johnson and really hit everything for that. So, all right, we're up against the 6 o'clock hour. You've got what's coming up here in sports at 6.
We got all the stuff Royals. We'll hear from the manager talking about the guy who has buoyed that team to such an impressive record. They've got what you told me that they have the 4th best record.
In
they're
baseball
19
since
and 11.
July 1st.
Yeah, 19 and 11 since the All-Star break, and since July 1st, they have been as good as there is. Have been in the top 4 or 5 teams in all of baseball. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll also have some stuff about the KC Current, the Heat situation there, and some stuff. We'll take you this luncheon. I'm not a big luncheon guy to cover them. But the Chiefs luncheon every year is exciting with hundreds and hundreds of people downtown. This year it was at the Lowe's Hotel, which is in the same building as what restaurant?
1587 Prime.
That's right. The Kelsey and Mahomes restaurant is going to be there at that hotel. So it was a big event. We got some highlights from that. It ought to be a lot of fun.
All right, KC Sports Tonight again tomorrow night at 5:30. We'll see you then.